Hello guys, I am Flash Isaac and today I'll be taking you through how to balance equations. Remember that chemistry is the study of the composition, properties and uses of matter. Now what is matter? Matter is anything that has mass and occupies space, and it is divided into pure and impure substances. And impure substances. Pure substances are elements and compounds. While impure substances are referred to as mixture. Looking at this equation, you see CH4 plus 2O2 to give CO2 plus 2H2O. This is the nature of equations in chemistry. Remember, matter exists in 3 states. Practically, although in theory we have 2 other states, plasma and Einstein's state. Solid, liquid and gases are the 3 main states of matter. So water is obviously in liquid state, so it will be here L. Methane, CH4 is methane, is a gas. Oxygen is a gas. CO2 is a gas. Look at something else. Once you are given a compound and a substrate AQ, that is aqueous. It simply means that the substance is dissolved or is mixed with water. Looking at these equations, what should you know? You look at the first part, you look at the second part. This part is referred to as the reactant, because for there to be a product, there must be reactants. Reactants are elements or compounds that combine, and the result of the combination is what we refer to as the product. Now this plus sign means combination. This reacts with this to give you equal to this. So this and this. Some reactions are reversible, meaning if here react, it will reverse to give you this. In that case, we said that the reaction is a reversible reaction, something like this. Now that we know that this part is the reactant and the other part is the product, what else should we know? We should know atoms, molecules, moles, and ions. Mole or moles is used to refer to amount of substance. Meanwhile, molecule or molecules are formed when atoms combine. An atom is the smallest part of a substance that can take part in chemical reactions. Atoms are elements are atoms like hydrogen, oxygen, chlorine. These are atoms. Meanwhile, molecule itself is the smallest part of a substance that can exist on its own and still retain the property of that substance. And like I said earlier, molecules are formed when atoms combine. H, which is hydrogen, this is hydrogen atom. Now, by the time you are given H2, this becomes a molecule. So, hydrogen and hydrogen combine to form a molecule of hydrogen, which is the smallest part of hydrogen that is capable of independent existence. So, CH4 plus 2O2 reacts to form CO2 plus 2H2O. Is it balanced? This equation, is it balanced? How do we know that an equation is balanced? Look at this. I told you that this is the reactant and this is the product side. Chemical reaction or in balancing of equations, they are made up of elements You can't talk about equations without elements and compound. So we have elements, then we have reacting side, reactant. We have products. If we decide to do this way, let's draw here, let's draw here, let's draw here. Now, what are the elements in this equation? The elements are simply carbon, this is C, hydrogen, and oxygen. So, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And some elements, you may not really know what they are. It doesn't matter. Just look at the spelling. This is C, write C, H, write H, O, write O. Now look at the numbers. The number before O2. This is the coefficient of O2. This means O2 times 2. So we have the elements here. The reactants. In the reacting side, how many carbon do we have? Or how many C do we have? We simply have 1 C. The 4 here is affecting just H. If I have C2, H6, O2. This 2 is affecting C. This 6 is affecting only H. And this 2 is affecting only O. So meaning here we have just 1 C. So 1. Do we have C here? No. So that means in the reacting side, we have just 1 C. Let's see the product. This is referred to as the product. In the product side, we have 1 C, right? Here, there is no C. So 1 C also. Is it balanced? Is carbon balanced? Yes. Because in the reacting side, we have just 1. In the product side, we have just 1. So carbon is balanced. Let's see hydrogen. In the reacting side, we have 4 hydrogen. 1 times 4, 4. So here, there is no hydrogen. So the total hydrogen is 4. So 4. Now let's go to the product side. Here, there is no H here. Then here we have hydrogen. How many? I told you that this 2 is affecting hydrogen. And this 2 is also affecting it. In fact, this 2 is affecting everything here, both hydrogen and oxygen. But this 2 is affecting just hydrogen. We simply say 2 times 2. What does that give you? 4. So in the product side, hydrogen is 4. So reactant, this 1 is equals 1, 4 is equals 4. Meaning hydrogen is balanced. Now oxygen. In the reacting side or in the reactants, we have oxygen 2 times 2. How many is that? 4. So 4. How about the product side? In the product side, for the first CO2, we have 2 oxygen. 1 times 2, 2. The other side, we have oxygen also. How many? Remember I said this 2 is affecting everything. So we have 2 oxygen here also to give you 2 plus 2. 2 here, 2 here. And what is 2 plus 2? 4. This means the total oxygen in the reacting side is 4 and the total in the product side is 4. Is it balanced? Yes. So this equation is balanced. What else? Let's see other sets of equations and check if they are balanced or not. Balancing of equations obeys the law of conservation of mass. And the law states that in a chemical reaction, matter or atoms is not created or destroyed, which means the total atoms in the reacting side should be equal to the total in the product side. That is what makes an equation balanced. Now, look at these equations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's check whether they are balanced or not. And let's see the correct form of the equation. Take a look at the first one. Remember, the formula: elements, reactants, products, and check. Check is to check whether it is balanced or not, or you can call it balanced, just the way it will suit you. Looking at H2O liquid giving us H2 and O2. What are the elements in this equation? They are simply H and O. That is all, right? So you come here and say elements H and O. Is it taken? Because looking at this, we have just H, O. Even here, H and O. Now, the reactants, the reacting side, which is the left-hand side, how many hydrogen do we have? 2. H2. This is the same thing as 1 H2, 1 H2, 1 O2. So 1 times 2 is 2. Hydrogen, 2. Let's look at the product side for hydrogen. How many hydrogen do we have here? H2. So 2. Is hydrogen balanced? Yes, because we have 2 in the reactant, 2 in the product. Or we have 2 in the left hand side, 2 at the right hand side, meaning it is what? Balanced. Now look at oxygen. In the left hand side, we have how many oxygen? 1. How many? 1. In the product side, how many do we have? O2. We have 2. Is it balanced? No. Because 1 is not equals 2. So what do we do in this case? We try to balance oxygen. That is the reason it is called balancing of equations. So what do we do? Since the number of oxygen in the product is bigger than reactant, we try to increase the reactant to make the number of oxygen the same. So what do we do? How do we make this oxygen 2? What do you think we should do to make it 2? To make oxygen 2, we simply come here to say, okay, let here be 2. Don't add to the ones under. The ones under, don't affect it at all. Leave it the way it is. If you're adding numbers, let it be here. If we make here 2 to give us 2H2O. Now let's see if oxygen is balanced. In the reactant, how many oxygen do we have? 2 times 0, we have 2. Now we have 2. Then in the product, how many do we have? H2O2, we have 2, right? Is it balanced? It is balanced. But there is a problem. Remember, trying to balance oxygen, we added some numbers. So you don't need to balance only oxygen and forget. You need to check the equation whether the other part is balanced. Is hydrogen balanced? Because you added a number to hydrogen. So this number can actually affect hydrogen. So let us see if hydrogen is balanced. Now we forget about this. In the reactant, hydrogen is now how many? 2 times 2, 4. In the product, hydrogen is how many now? 2. So is hydrogen now balanced? No, because the number you added has not affected hydrogen. So what do we do to balance hydrogen? Let us try to make hydrogen 4. To do that, we simply come here and say, okay, if we add 2 here, hydrogen becomes 4, right? Which is 2 times 2. So we say, okay, 4 now. Is hydrogen balanced? Yes. Now, after changing any number, you don't just proceed. Start again to make sure everything is correct, because changing number might affect others like we saw earlier. So now that we've done this, let's confirm if it is balanced now. Reactant, 2 hydrogen, 4 hydrogen, 2 times 2, 4. Product, 2 times 2, 4. So hydrogen is balanced. Now let's see oxygen. 2 times O or 2 times 1, 2. So oxygen is 2. In the product side, how many do we have? O2. That's also 2. 2. So this equation is balanced. So this is the correct form of the equation. 2H2O to give us 2H2 plus O2. Simple, right? Now let's take a look at this. N2 plus O2 to give us NO2. So 2, 2, 1, 2. So let's try to increase nitrogen. To do that, we simply make here 2, right? Now let's see if everything is balanced now. Remember, this equation is made up of nitrogen and oxygen. Reacting side now, nitrogen is 2. Product side, nitrogen is how many? 2. So balanced. Oxygen in the reacting side, 2. Product, 2 times 2, 4. So oxygen is not balanced. So the good news for us is that oxygen is standing alone. So in the reacting side, let's increase oxygen to make it 4. How do we do that? If here is 2, 2 times 2 will give you what? 4. So meaning here is now 4. Let's cross check. Reacting side, nitrogen 2. Product side, 2. Balanced. Reacting side, oxygen is 2 times 2, 4. Product side, oxygen is 2. Because, like, remember, don't forget, this 2 is affecting everything. But this 2 is affecting just O. So 2 times 2, 4. Is this equation balanced? Yes, it is balanced. And let's look at this. 1, 1. Fe is iron. Iron is 1 here. Oxygen is 2. Here, oxygen is 3. And iron is 2. So how do we resolve this? Since here is 2, if we say, okay, let here be 2. Iron is balanced. But oxygen is 3. And you cannot say, okay, let's put 1 here. Because it will not give you 3. If you say 1 times 2, it will give you 2. So this is a very interesting equation. And it deserves to be written out. So Fe plus O2 gives us Fe2O3. And by the time you advance or you master balancing of equations, you won't need to be drawing this table. You use this wisdom I'm about to teach you. So, like we've gotten to, we say, okay, let's put 2 here. Putting 2 here, Fe is what? 2. Oxygen is what? 2. But here, Fe is 2. Fe is balanced, but oxygen is not balanced. So trying to balance oxygen, if you put 1 here, and you say 1 times 2, what will I give you? 2. So how do we make oxygen 3? Using whole numbers. Let's say, okay, let's try 2. If you put 2 here, it will simply be 2 times 2, 4. And it's more than this. And if you put 2 here, it will grow to 6. So let's try 3. So with 3 here, let's look at something. How many iron do we have in the reacting side? 2. How many oxygen? 2. 3 times 2. 6. How many iron do we have in the product side? 2. And oxygen is 3. So this means we need to also adjust this one. Because we can't make here 3. And how do we easily make oxygen 6 here? We simply add 2 here to give us 2 times 3, 6. Now, oxygen is balanced, right? But iron is no longer balanced because here we have 2 and here we have 2 times 2, 4. Therefore, let's increase iron. If we change here to 4, here becomes 4 and here becomes 4. Okay, now look at this. This is C2H6 plus 3O2 to give us H2O plus CO2. Now, when you try to balance this equation, oxygen is 3 here, hydrogen is 6. To make hydrogen 6 here, the easiest thing to do is make here 3. To simply give us 3 times 2, 6. So hydrogen is balanced. To make carbon 2 here, we simply say add 2 here to give us what? 2 times 2, like 2 carbon, 2 carbon. In this case, carbon is balanced. C is equals to in the reactant and in the product. In this case, hydrogen is balanced. 6. H is equals 6 here. Here, 3 times 2 is what? 6. Now, let's take a look at oxygen. Oxygen here is what? 2. And look at here. 3 times 1. Oxygen is 3. Plus 2 times 2, 4. And 3 plus 4 is what? 7. And oxygen is standing alone. So it is easy for us to balance oxygen. What should we put here to give us 7? If we say 3, we'll have 6, right? If we say 4, we'll have 8. So the only thing to put here to get that 7 is to have 7 over 2. Do you know why? So that 7 over 2 times 2. 7 over 2 times 2 is equals what? 14 over 2. Is it correct? 14 divided by 2 is what? 7. So in that case, oxygen will be balanced. But to avoid fractions, this is the reason why I multiply everything by 2. So that everything here times 2 plus everything here times 2 will give us 2 times 7 over 2, remaining 7. Here times 2 is 6, and here times 2 is 4. In mathematics, once you multiply everything by the same number, the right hand side and the left hand side by the same number is balanced. It doesn't affect anything. So similarly, sodium is Na here, Na here. Hydrogen is 2 here. Hydrogen is 3 here. Hydrogen is just 2 here. So we need to balance the hydrogen to give us 2 plus 2, 4. And 2 times 2, 4. So that is it on balancing of equations. Remember, we will not be able to give you example for all the equations in the world. But with this principle, you should be able to check whether an equation is balanced or not. And you should be able to balance equations. So thank you. I am Isaac.